You don't have a choice in your sexual preferences, people. Hormones are a hell of a drug. Yeah, masculinity is what gets my motor running. I'm a transgender, that's an other in our society. Lost my virginity when I was 16 years old. And that was pretty cool, I thought, at 16. And so I kept trying. I was so attracted to women back then. Yeah, as a teenager, I had a few girlfriends, not many. But when I was in my 20s, I had my share of girlfriends, and then I was married for a few years. I'm just giving you a little background. So I was married to a woman for, oh goodness, it had to be more than 5 years, something like that, around 5 years or so. And I was in another long-term relationship with another female for 5 years on and off. And then I was in another relationship with a female who we were together about 6.5 years. And I think I had like one more girlfriend after that relationship. But my attraction, if you caught some of my previous talks, you might have heard me talk about one of, I don't even know if we call it a side effect of the hormones, or just one of the aspects for me when I started my hormone replacement therapy. I experienced a shift in my sexual desire, big time, from desiring being femininity, being attracted to femininity, to attraction to masculinity. It was amazing. It was something I didn't have any control over, was not expecting or even asked for, but it was still an amazing journey. And going through hormone replacement therapy literally put you through another puberty. So I experienced a masculine puberty when I was a teenager. And in my early 40s, I got to experience a feminine puberty. I got to experience that rush of hormones, that feminine hormone just rushing through my body, the estrogen just, and the lack of testosterone poisoning, or I wouldn't say poisoning, but throbbing through my body as it once did for so long. And then when I cut off that supply and filling my hormones with estrogen, for me, and I understand it's not the case for most people, but for me, it shifted my sexual orientation, it shifted my sexual attraction. I went from, goodness, decades of not being attracted to masculinity and being very attracted to femininity, to femininity's cool, to going, oh yeah, masculinity is what gets my motor running. That's what gets me going. I'm into guys. And experiencing being into guys for the first time, if I would have had to do that at 12 or 13, that might have been frightening. Those hormones, oh goodness, they're a lot. Hormones are a hell of a drug. And I got to experience that intense attraction to masculinity, to being in touch with my femininity. And wow, it was a fun puberty because I didn't have that guilt and that worry about, oh, I can't do things because I'm too young and don't know what I'm doing. No, I know what the fuck I'm doing. And I got to experience that rush, that charge of hormones that just drives you and makes you do stupid stuff and run around and chase people you would never chase before and talk with guys you would never talk with before. And yeah, I experienced lusting after guys, and I experienced that for the first time in my life. I didn't experience that when I was a child. I didn't lust after guys. No, it wasn't my attraction. And to experience that in my 40s, and at first it was like, wow, that was tough for me at first to adapt to. I'm like, I'm used to my typical attraction was towards femininity, and now all of a sudden that's not my attraction. That's not what I'm after. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not what's driving me. It's the masculinity. So instead of shutting down and disliking myself because I don't have a fucking choice in my sexual orientation, I decided to go with it. Let's experience this. Let's see what happens when my attraction to guys. What is that like? I don't know. To that point, I never really kissed a guy before. I never held a guy's hands. I never spent hours daydreaming about some guy. And now I'm doing those things. I'm dreaming about guys all day. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about what it's like when a guy is touching me, when a guy is with me. And it was exciting. I have to break down this barrier and this shield of the typical social norms that's been shoved down my throat for all my life. That it was interesting for me and challenging, to be honest, to accept these feelings of wow, I'm attracted to guys. And I would not feel comfortable or couldn't make an honest statement of saying that in my life before I started my hormone replacement therapy in 2015. So I decided to, hey, I'm at college now. In 2015, I was in Florida in college and wanting to experience who I am and ask those tough questions. And this was taking me down a path. Maybe it wasn't the path I would have painted myself, but it's a path that I'm on now, and I wanted to enjoy it, make the most of it. And so that's what I did. I started exploring my femininity and expressing my femininity and in expressing my attraction to masculinity. Oh my God. I had fun learning to flirt with guys. And at first, it was scary, to be honest with you, because I was getting attracted to guys, but I was still being read very much as othered, as a non-cis person, as a transgender person, or even some people back then when I first started to experience this hormone change, some people would label me as cross-dresser, or just they didn't label me, or they would turn their heads from me because I didn't look the way they hoped I looked, or walked or talked the way they expected or want me to. So, and that's a general statement about society. And that's how I felt. I felt that I wasn't being accepted by anybody, and it was hard even accepting myself. And so I started going out and trying to date guys. And I thought it would be easy. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be easy to pick up. I want to go out. I want to see what it's like to have sex with guys. Okay, let's do that. And so I would get on Tinder and I would put myself out there and be vulnerable as an other person in our society is fucking scary sometimes, and it's a horrible feeling many times. And I put myself out there in Tinder, and I was humiliated by guys way more times than asked about myself or asked who I was or asked to do something with me. I literally went out with 0 guys from Tinder. And I was on Tinder for like fucking 2 years. It was awful. I would go on there and just get harassed by guys because they would read me as trans and othered, and I don't even want to get into what I would encounter in that environment, and it was awful. And sometimes I would get to where like a guy wanted to take me on a date, yeah, and they agree, and they'll get all the way to I'm getting ready for the date, and they cancel the fucking date. You know, that 15 minutes we're supposed to go for. I've had guys that are driving on the way to me. I used to play it kind of safe. I used to use, and I'd have them talk with me on a different app. I forget which app it was, but I was able to track them once they start talking to me, where they were at and location. So I was like, okay, you know, in case, who knows what's going to happen on a date. I need to know where this person's coming from, where they're going, and where I'm coming from and going. So I would see them drive halfway to my dorm to pick me up, and then all of a sudden that signal would stop and turn around, and I wouldn't get a call from them or anything. They just wouldn't come, wouldn't show. The no call, no shows I had, I was making myself sad, building myself up for dates for a while. And so I decided to go on to Grindr. I was like, at least people aren't going to treat me like a fucking asshole just because I want to date a guy on this. And it was a little better. I met some guys on Grindr, but it was always a mismatch. Not a lot of guys on Grindrs are looking for females. And I was kind of in that blurry zone where I was being read as feminine, sometimes not feminine. And that was hard too, because I'm was and still am very much attracted to cis men who on the spectrum of straightness lean very far straight. I would say not very, very far, but I don't want no guy to be like, oh, I'm straight. But I do like masculinity, and when they're confident in where they're at and labeled on that, wherever they are on that spectrum, I like them to be attracted to my femininity and being, because I like to feel very feminine when I'm with a guy, especially sexually. So I wasn't finding what I wanted on Grindr either. I was striking out, but I did get a few decent dates on Grindr. Then I found FetLife. Oh my god, guys. You've been on FetLife? I discovered that a few years back, and I was like, FetLife is pretty cool because you make your profile, and then it has all these likes that you like, and then you can join all these little groups of people like, we like this specific one kink or this specific one whatever it is, right? It has all these little categories that go, oh, I will hang out with this group, and you can meet them virtually, or even sometimes they'll have meetup groups in person. Before COVID. And so I was able to find little bubbles that I was into. I would just put myself out there. I'm Brandi, I'm transgender, and I'm looking for guys, right? And then guys would be like, okay, look, I'm looking for transgender, just like Brandi. Here we go. And actually, no, I take that back. I met my boyfriend, who I've been with for like 3.5 years now, on Grindr. I think it was, yeah. I think it was Grindr, and he was. I'm gonna get into that story when I met him, and he's been great. He is a great guy, and I have a lot of fun with him. I'm sure we'll get into some interesting stories about mine and his adventures. But yeah, my point was I had no success on Tinder. I was to say Grindr was a great success for me, and Fat Life opened up a whole world to me, basically, where I got to hang out with people who felt comfortable around me, and I felt comfortable around them, and meet those people in person and talk with them online. So that was really fun for me. But as far as sex, goodness, think about this, y'all. For most of my life, my sex for me was I was presenting myself as the masculine one. I was masculine over the feminine girl. I was with a woman. And I very much enjoyed penetrating women. But my thing was I loved cunnilingus. Yes, I loved going down on women. That was a thing for me. Until my hormone replacement therapy, and it's like I have not been down on a woman since 2015. Yeah, since 2015. You don't have a choice in your sexual preferences, people. I noticed though that I continue to have a very good oral fixation. That just wasn't for the female genitals or the vagina genitals. Because you can have very feminine people with penises or vaginas, and you can have very masculine people with penises or vaginas. Doesn't change who you are. But as far as sexual pleasure and playing, I enjoy playing with phallic. With the nice big phallic, let's just say it that way. And not so much with the vajayjay. I do appreciate a nice vajayjay, but it's not the turn on it once was for me. I'm gonna be excited when I have my own. It's gonna be very cool. Realize I can enjoy it even more with my attraction to men. A different type of oral. Sure, I had to learn new techniques, but I'm a pretty good student sometimes. And when I'm passionate about something, I set my mind to it. I can do it. I can do it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Yes. I'm what many would call a specialist. So that's been a journey. It's been a journey of passion. It's been a journey of adventure and discovery. Discovering a new sexual desire for me that I enjoy a lot. It was amazing for me. Have you all ever experienced like a shift in your sexual orientation, your sexual attraction? If so, let me know. Because most people I talk to, not really. I mean, people, ebb and flow and slide along the spectrum of their sexual attraction. But for me, I felt like I was pegged out on one side of that spectrum attraction, and you don't get pegged out on the other side. And my body, mind, and libido had to catch up to all of that. But it's been a fun adventure until my orchiectomy in, it was late 2017, November 2017, something like that. Maybe November 8th, maybe 2018. Orchiectomy, it really knocked my sexual desire for a little bit of a loop. Everyone's going, what the fuck's an orchiectomy, right? And orchiectomy is the medical term for removing testicles. When someone's getting a transgender confirming or bottom surgery, some people call it, whatever you want to call the surgery, you have to, they usually get the orchiectomy at the same time, right? For me, there's 2 reasons I needed to get my orchiectomy, even though I was not going any further with bottom surgery. I needed that orchiectomy because my hormone levels were jumping all over the place. My readings would be telling me I'm at menopausal levels, and then 6 weeks later I'm double the levels of an 18-year-old girl, right? My hormones are all over the place. It was hard to keep them in control. And the second thing was, back in 2012, I had a surgery for an inguinal hernia. So they put like that mesh web right across my pelvis, and that was great because it holds back hernias popping out. But it also blocks access to the cavity where testicles recline back up to when everything's getting tucked. If you're into tucking, you know what I'm talking about. You pull back, pull under tight, and those things go right up into this little cavity. Because, it's an evolutionary thing. Because if you think about generations, you go back millions and millions and millions of generations, testicles started off up near the liver. Like, we can see that in sharks still have that, and some fish still have that. But we can see the trail of evolutionary journey of the testes going all the way to where they became outside for a few different reasons, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, so the testes have a cavity where they can go back into the body, so to speak, not go all the way back to the liver, all the way up that far, but they can go into a little cavity. And for me, that mesh that was put over my pelvic region there would not allow them to go up, so they would be blocked. And the worst part was, there's the bone right there, it's called the pubis ramus. You sit on that bone, basically like pelvic bone, and my testes would rest right on top of that bone and pushed up, like where they couldn't go up anymore, but they're resting against that bone. And then I would like to wear tight clothing, and so they would always be right there, right tight. And a few times I bumped into counters and tables, and they're right on the bone, and that's not good at all. Oh, I still wince a little bit when I go around the corner of a table. So, because it drives me crazy and I couldn't get a good tuck, and I would always have these testes right there bulging, and I didn't like that look, and it bothered me, so I decided to have that orchiectomy surgery. And I was told that one of the side effects could be that I lose my sexual drive. And that happened to me, and goodness. After that surgery, I found sexual desire for anyone challenging. It was hard. It was hard for many years. For a few years. Even for a brief time, I started wondering what would life be like going through as asexual. I really started researching and looking into that because that's how I was feeling for quite a while. I don't think I'll ever reach the levels I was when I was going through that second puberty. My hormones were spiking all over the place. They still spike now, but it's just estrogen. I don't have any more testosterone flowing through my body. Very, very. They're gone. It was like for me to experience a period of my life basically being asexual for a while, and before that being very sexual. I had a strong sex drive, whether it was towards females for most of my life or to masculinity. The drive that's been there in the last few years. More than a few years now, like 5. Yeah. So having that strong libido and then just having that just shut down and wiped out for a while. So I'm gonna sign off. Y'all have a great day, great evening, whatever you're enjoying right now. Love yourself, like yourself, and treat people the way they want to be treated.